Hey everyone, Michael Short here. Come on, let's go outdoors. Well, it's always a real pleasure. Pretty well every time I get down to the Crow's Nest area, I pop into the Crow's Nest fly shop and cafe, and this time, finally been able to connect with Alan Brice, who's the owner and head guide for the fly shop here. Yeah. Alan, this is as I say, a little different kind of fly fishing story. We're not going to go out onto the river and do your traditional how to catch a fish or any of that. You've been in this game for so long. 1988, you started guiding. And we're going to talk a little bit about sort of the state of the environment around these waters that we all love so much in terms of fishing. So talk a little bit about, first of all, how you've seen the landscape change over the years when it comes to trout habitat.
Well, I started out in Banff guiding and Canmore area, so not a whole lot's changed up there, with the Banff Park sort of protecting the headwaters. Down here, it's just a gradual sort of degradation of the habitat from industry, logging, mining, small developments along the river, and natural causes too, like in the flood of '95 on the Castle. That was a natural flood, and it's changed that river forever, the South Castle in particular. And about 20 years ago, we also started seeing other issues for trout, like otters. Like otters have gone everywhere that I fish, right up into the very high headwaters where the genetically pure cutthroat are. I see otters up there. Otters on the Crow's Nest have made a big change. We catch great fish in the Crow's Nest still, lots of big fish, but definitely the population of all species of fish in these streams has gone down over the years.
So have the changes been, in your opinion, man-made? Have they been more natural? Are we seeing changes due to global warming, that type of thing? Climate change?
Definitely. Global warming is whatever you want to call it. That's a whole big debate there, but it's changing. Is changing. Right now, our streams flows, say in the Castle, is probably about 15 cubic meters per second, and that's what I expect to see in the end of July. And it's, still the first week of June here. For example, the Old Man River, it's drastically changed too. Like when the runoff is over and it starts to drop, it drops every day. It drops a cubic meter a second per day, and then it gets down to about 7 cubic meters per second, and it's no longer. I can no longer throw my whitewater rafts in there and negotiate a river and do a fish trip.
And of course, when we see those drops in water levels and we see the rise in temperature, that creates another issue in terms of the impact it has on the fish, and I guess really when people need to be aware of staying off the water and fishing.
Yeah, I'm always surprised. It's like a hot day in August, and I'm driving out to look for some cold water to fish, and go by the lower Crow's Nest, and people are fishing it at noon or midday, and the water temps have got to be in the 70s, and I'm surprised a lot of anglers don't figure that out, that the water temps have an effect, and then they come back in the shop and say, I just caught little fish. It's like, that's because the big fish were hiding and sulking, right? And the little fish came up and bit your fly.
Right. So, I mean, on a lot of attention last year and the year before put on the bow in terms of that high water temperature and get off the water. Is it more difficult to get word out up on the Crow's Nest and some of the upper East Slope streams to say to anglers, look, this is a time not to be fishing?
No, it wouldn't be hard to get the word out, really. You just have to put a little effort into it. I was pretty disappointed last year because when Hoot Owl was implemented, I drove around to every provincial park, every sort of major access point on all of our streams, and I didn't even see a piece of cardboard up there with a magic marker on it saying, no fishing between these hours. So all the good anglers and concerned anglers and informed anglers and the guides, we weren't fishing, but everybody else was, and it was not implemented very good. I think to shut down the entire fishery in ES1 is just like, let's just shut down recreation for Albertans, the guiding industry, the tourist industry and accommodation industry while you're at it. Where there is cold water that good anglers can find to fish, and I guess there was a concern that everybody would be there, but if everybody goes to the same pool, it's not like 50 people are going to yank trout all day. They're smarter than that. Like the first couple of people are going to catch a fish or two, and then they're going to wise up, and I think that would manage itself, the pressure on the fish to some extent. But to shut down, say, the upper Bow and Canmore, which is glacial, it makes no sense, right? I mean, we do have the right to hunt and fish in our Constitution, and I'm not disagreeing with fishing, not letting people fish water that's too warm. I'm just saying let's put a regulation out there that says you can't fish trout streams in ES1 when the water temp is, say, 68 degrees Fahrenheit or 70. That would be for the biologist to establish. But then, instead of having sort of no management, because our fish and wildlife guys, they're busy, they're underfunded, and they chase bears all summer. Unfortunately, there was apparently 15 bears killed in the Crow's Nest Pass last year because of loss of habitat combined with bad berry season. Right? It was a bad year for the bears, and it was hot.
There are lots of mitigating factors. Obviously, it's surrounded on closures and what should be a closure. You mentioned getting on to fish and really going after it. And one of the things that has changed in this area is the rescinding of barbless hooks, and you've seen instances where some pretty significant hardware has been left behind. And that has an impact on the trout for sure.
Oh, definitely. Like the Livingston River has been catch and release ever since I can remember, so that's 25 years, so quarter of a century. And I stopped fishing it 20 years ago because when I went up there and caught these cutthroat, they were so mangled, and people go up there and they use hooks like such, no hook size restrictions, and quite often when people use bucktails for bull trout, they're much bigger than that. But I got this in the Crow's Nest River last week. It's like, that's a catch and release stream. Look at the size of that hook, and that could also have just been a treble that size too, and that would be legal. So the fact that you can use, barbed treble hooks in, say, the Livingston, which is a catch and release cutthroat stream, which apparently we're supposed to be trying to protect, it just makes no sense, and it doesn't need a study. It just needs to be put in the regs. It's like barbless hooks, no trebles, and just use some common sense and get down to the basics, right? If we really want to protect our trout and our cutthroat and our passion of fishing.